Yes, I worked on Max Neptune and Menacing Squid, special makeup effects. To start, we are right now sitting in 1313 Effects Studio, and at the time I was working on it, I was about a year out of school and still had a lot of questions, and my friend Tom, who runs this studio here, he helped me out a lot with that. So Max Neptune was my first, or I should say largest, solo effects heavy project. It had more of anything I'd ever worked on in one sitting. So when John first contacted me, I got the script and the concept art, and we talked about it over the phone. And then at the original meeting and sit down, I'm sure he remembers that they were talking to me about Halloween masks and cardboard cutouts for costume. So I tried to persuade him out of that. The most challenging thing actually for me was Max Neptune's chest piece, because I had never really done anything for costume before, but you know, there's this chest piece and how are we going to do that? And that was one of those cardboard cutouts we had talked about. I was like, no, we'll make it out of rubber, it'll be great, I'll sculpt it, it'll be awesome. So for the first time, I had sculpted this full chest piece front and back on a mannequin and had to mold it right there, and I was just not familiar with that in any ways. But I went and did it, it was cool. It ended up being not bad, but it was definitely imperfect because it was my first, and it was sculpted with a softer clay, so you notice the imperfections a lot more, like as far as not being smooth and whatnot. This is going to be my last entry for the chest piece. My man Boogie's here backing me up. Beast, want to get in a shot? Quick, run out of tape. That's my man Beast. Listen, for all the effects people watching this behind the scenes, I know it was an ugly mold. This is the worst mold. By the way,
I know it was an ugly mold.
This is the worst mold you will probably ever see. And do not use this behind the scenes feature to learn how to do effects. I remember when I was working on a chest piece and I had molded and gave John pictures. He posted them up on the MySpace, and the actor Kurt, who played Max Neptune, saw those images and thought for some reason that he was going to be wearing those. So when we were at the reading, I presented the unpainted chest piece, and he just kind of wiped his brow like, oh man. For a minute I thought I was going to be wearing this big stone brick. He's a silly guy too. So the second thing I had to do for Max was his bubble gun, the ray gun. Basically they came to me with spare parts from Home Depot pieced together, and it looked awesome, but it was bonded together with some kind of auto bondo, and every time it took a good hit it was falling apart. So we ended up molding it and having a silicone mold so that way it would last a lot longer, and we had options for what kind of material we wanted to make the gun out of, either a soft polyfoam or a hard plastic, and we ended up going with hard plastic just because something solid and heavy always feels better for the actor. Martian the Kid look I took from the concept art, which was pretty awesomely drawn by Colin, and it was very retro and stereotypical old school sci-fi Martian look. I just kind of tried to give him like a couple facial features that maybe wouldn't come out with, you know, actor expression. So like I sculpted like maybe a little mouth curve or dimple or something, and there was definitely some heavy brow action like this. You know, they say sculptors often make characters look like themselves, and somehow that's how it turns out. And I get this eyebrow thing, and sometimes it's true, and usually it is. You know, molded the Martian and ran it out of foam latex. It's a pretty common creature use material, and I had a lot of help from GM Foam and the guys that were working there at the time. They let me use the lab and their ovens to bake that stuff out, because at this point we were getting into larger stuff and they had pretty big ovens. So I owe GM Foam a lot of credit for being really cool about that. I played Martian the Kid because we had already a stone bust of me that I could sculpt on and work on, and obviously the mask would fit my head perfect at that point.
Look, it's not Martian the Kid, it's Dominic!
Dominic and Sweat Monster.
Roswell did not really happen, it was just a hoax. I had to shave for the part, and you know, I took one for the team. It was about this long, actually. It was a year old, and you know, I just had to go. It was like a very sad day, very violent. The eyes on the mask actually was, I didn't know how I was going to do that right away. We ended up using a quick setting epoxy. It didn't turn out as smooth and clear as we wanted to, so I couldn't actually see through the mask when we were on set. So they were trying to direct me vocally. I actually almost ran off a cliff, and I was probably 2 or 3 steps away from rolling off that cliff, but everybody was yelling, "Stop, stop, don't keep going."
Run. Stop, 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 stop! Don't move!
Once you hit that brush, don't go further.
Yeah. I still think that would have been funny on camera if I actually had, but...
We almost lost Martian the kid.
I know.
Could you imagine? Poor guy topples over the side.
By the time we were ready for the reshoot with the Martian, I had a whole new mask, new paint job, and new eyes made out of vacuum plastic, which actually turned out to look really good. Again, I'm glad we had to do the reshoot on that. So next up was Shambles. It was one of the more important characters to get done. And Shambles was actually the only character that I started off with no concept art. So this whole time we were just like, well, what's he going to look like? What's he going to look like? We had no idea what he was going to look like. And somewhere down the line, a piece of concept art did pop up from this kid named Mark. Alright, well, pretty much all I got ideas for was from the arms. But the arms, they were sculpted out of wet clay. It was the same soft clay that I sculpted the chest piece out of, but because it wasn't on a mannequin, it was easier for me to do. So once we got that molded, it was huge. It was probably like twice as long as a human arm, I think. I did that at GM Foam again, and those took up a lot of foam. And actually they let me use their shop space and their materials for that. And with that, saved us a lot of money, and again, we're grateful. Came time to paint those things, I brought them home and painted them up. My friend Rigo, he was also there, and he helped me paint those. So thanks again for that, Rigo. These were all worn by John. John was, you know, the director of the movie. He played Shambles. So now, come time for the face, we did a face cast of John and sculpted on his face and molded that. Without having concept art, the way I saw it was something like the Fluke Man from the X-Files meets some kind of squid face hybrid. And the Shambles face also had some mean, nasty teeth on there, and when Rigo came over to help me mold that face, he told me he had these teeth already sculpted and molded and ready, and I said bring them by, and he let me use those, just put in some dental acrylic and glued them onto the mask later on. I didn't have to actually do much to Agach or for Agach except his eyepiece, who is played by Michael, and so I got a cast of his face, sculpted the eye on it, and we went with a very large and exaggerated dome monocle look. Molded that, ran it in foam latex. The lens was actually, I molded a compass dome, which actually worked out to be a good size. Made a silicone mold and used tinted plastic to pour it up. And inside we had an LED light, which ended up being the biggest pain in the ass, I think, of the entire movie. Because it worked every time we set it up and glued it in, and then every time you yelled action, it just shut off.
Oh, dude! Alright guys, I'll be right back. I'm going to Target. Oh, this is bullshit.
Did it go out again?
Sure did. No, it's all the way up.
Probably went through like 3 or 4 LED lights. My overall experience on the movie was pretty awesome. Like it was one of the most low budget film I had worked on, and it was the funnest at the same time. The cast was cool, the crew was awesome, and everybody really wanted to get this done the right way, and that's really what it's all about. Never mind all that big budget Hollywood hoopla. It was definitely a great experience. Most of it was a first for me, and can't wait for the sequel.